feel it.
Amen.
Man, what a house full.
Hallelujah.
I love it. Got some of my guys from work came, some of my friends, Stoney and Gina came.
Come on.
Praise God.
Man. Got my friend Diane back here. That's my other girlfriend.
Praise the Lord.
Got up this morning, I said, man, I'm gonna get dressed up today and go to church.
That looks fine.
Well, we've had our grandbabies all weekend.
We
I
understand.
understand, brother. I
So
understand.
I needless to say, I've slept in the living room with grandbabies on blow-up mattresses, and I fought and I scratched and got rolled over and kicked and punched. It's been wonderful. It's been wonderful.
Yes,
But I was
sir.
trying to decide this morning, I said, well, maybe I need to wear a nice shirt. I figured Johnny's gonna come in here all dressed up this morning.
We did.
I said, man, you know, and while I was thinking about what I was gonna wear, God spoke to me and he said, hey, he said, you came to me in your armor.
Come on.
He said,
Come
why
on.
are you gonna wear something else?
All right.
It's all right.
He said, this is who you are. This is who you're gonna be.
It's okay.
And as long as you're for me, that's all that counts.
That's right.
That's right.
And I
That's
walked in here this morning and my brother's got his armor on. You know, I've been working on this since we went to the Just Men. Told God, I said this last night, I was sitting there trying to study and the kids was running around in the floor screaming and hollering. Told God, I said, this is gonna be too much for 20 minutes. He said, that's okay, as long as you get the word. So where we're gonna be at this morning is Joshua 5. It's gonna be the last three verses, 13, 14, and 15. When you get there, say amen. And it came to pass, when Joshua was by Jericho, and he lifted up his eyes, and he looked, and behold, there stood a man over against him, and his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went unto him, and said unto him, art thou for us, or for our adversaries? And he said, nay. But as the captain of the host of the Lord, I am now come. And Joshua fell to his face to the earth, and did worship, and said unto him, what saith my Lord unto this servant? And the captain of the Lord's host said unto Joshua, loose thy shoes from off thy foot, for the place where thou standest is holy.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And my favorite part. And Joshua did so.
Joshua did so.
Amen.
Hey, we're talking about Joshua here. Joshua is one of the greatest battle strategists people that you could ever run into.
Amen.
He is known for his battle.
Yes, he will.
You know, I read that even as crazy as Hitler was, he told his men to study the tactics of Joshua so that they could conquer their battles.
Amen.
At West Point today, where some of our greatest war people come from, they're studying the tactics of Joshua.
Amen.
Come on. Come on.
That's where we want to be.
That's
Hallelujah.
right. Yes.
That's where we want
Yes.
to be.
Yes.
You know, he been fighting battles for 40 years for the Lord.
Uh-huh.
And the first 40 he didn't even know about. You know, he fought under Moses.
Yes, he did.
You know, Moses was his leader.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
So when we go through this scripture here, let's see. You know, let me back up. When we think about Jericho, you always hear Joshua. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho.
Right.
You know, anything about Jericho you hear about Joshua. So, let's see. Get my thoughts together here. Okay. So, at the night before the battle of Jericho, Joshua is moving closer to the adversaries. You know, it's just like Ken, you know, when we were in. You know, anytime you go into a battle anywhere, they try to get as close as they can to see what's going on. So Joshua's getting as close as he can to his adversaries here. He's looking at these big walls. He's looking at these big gates.
Yes, he
He's
is.
trying to figure out Well, how many archers do I need?
Right.
How many battered rams do I need?
Right.
But Joshua didn't know is God's already scouted out Jericho.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
Amen.
That's right.
You know, God already knows what it's going to take care of Jericho.
That's right, that's
But
right.
God's not there to scout out Jericho.
No, he ain't.
God's there to scout out Joshua.
That's
Amen.
right.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so while Joshua's scouting out Jericho, he looks over and he sees this big old man standing there in his armor, and he's already got his sword pulled out. He's on the offense. So, you know, Joshua, as many battles as Joshua's been in, you know, he don't back down too much. So he steps up there, he takes a couple steps closer, and he says, hey, buddy, I got a question to ask you. He says, whose side are you on? Are you on our side? Or are you on the adversary's side?
Right.
So when you look in the verse here, when you look in verse 14, he said,
Neither one.
no. So let me tell you, sometimes when we read the Bible a little bit too fast. So if you don't understand nay means no.
No.
This is not a yes or a no question here. You know, if I ask the bishop, whose side you on, brother? Mine or John's? And he says yes. Yeah, what, bishop? Are you on my side or Johnny's side? That's one thing we forget about, and that's one thing Joshua was doing.
Yes.
You know, we all have a lot of problems here. We want somebody to be on our side. And we want God to be on our side.
Come on.
God's not here to be on our side. God's here on God's side.
Amen.
He wants us to be
Has to
on
be
God's
on
side,
his.
not our side.
That's right.
Amen.
So when we realize that, you know, you have to have that point to where you got to step over that line and say, okay, God, I'm on your side.
I'm on your side.
So when we went through this, you know, Joshua was thinking, well, you know, his answer is really going to determine on how this really turns out.
Yeah, that's right.
True.
So after they got him through the nays, you know, it's always that thing of, you know, I said on your side or my side, you know, and he's saying, well, God, you know, are you on the Republican side, you on the Democrat side? God, you on my side, you on his side. You know, we always get into this point. So, you know, back years ago, we always thought, I seen this saying, and it was bumper stickers, and it was all through all of the denominations of religious, the Baptists, the Catholics, and it was, God is my co-pilot.
Yeah.
You know, that really sticks in me.
Come on.
You know, and I'm not a pilot, but I've flown all over the country. And all over the Orient, I've flown. So I did a little research here, and I hope there's no pilots or co-pilots here, because I'm going to make you mad here in a minute, and I won't make anybody mad. But the co-pilot's job is he goes in the plane, and his seat is on the right seat. That's the dummy seat. He don't play with the controls. He don't talk on the radio. He don't do anything until that pilot that sits in that left-hand seat
Right.
gives him instructions on
That's
them.
right.
Come on.
So let me tell you something here. God's not here to be your stinking co-pilot.
No, he ain't.
No.
God's here to be the pilot.
The
That's
pilot.
right. Come on.
As we realize
Great.
that we're going to be God's co-pilot,
Yeah.
you know, God's always right.
Yes,
He's
sir.
always right.
He is.
You know, it's a lot of times you read in the Bible and you don't understand things and you don't want to do things. It don't make any difference what you think.
Right.
It's in the Bible. It's the truth. It's God's word.
Amen. Come on.
So what you have to do now is you got to have three things here that you're going to have to use to get to where you need to be. So the first thing you need to do here is you need to relinquish command.
All right.
That's true.
Help us.
So if you look here in chapter 14 or in verse 14, he says, nay, but as the captain of the host of the Lord, and I have now come. And Joshua fell to his face to the earth and did worship,
Yes.
and said unto him, what saith my Lord unto his servant? So, in this world, there's only, you know, certain people that you're supposed to worship. And really, there's only one person that you're supposed to worship, and it's deity.
That's
Come on.
So, in my mind and in my spirit, I know who this big soldier here is
Oh,
in the armor.
yes.
This is Jesus.
Yes.
This is Jesus.
Yes, sir.
Well, you might question on why I say it's Jesus. If you flip back to Exodus, and you look in chapter, let's see here, where am I at? Chapter 17, you can start reading there in 14, but it says, and the Lord said unto Moses, write this for a memorial in the book. Now this was after this battle that Moses was sitting up on the mountain, and he told Joshua to go down and he fights with Amalek. So Joshua goes up on the mountain. Every time Moses raises his hand, Joshua wins.
Right.
Every time he drops his hands, Amalek wins.
Right.
So what they do, they set Moses on a stone,
Yes.
and one stood on one side, and one stood on the other side, and they held his hands up, and he prevailed.
That's right.
So we know by this battle here that this was not only a physical battle, this was a spiritual battle.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But when you read this, it said, the Lord said unto Moses, write this as a memorial in the book, and rehearse it for the ears of Joshua. For I will utterly put the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. So the first thing we got to do here is the relinquishing of command. So if you look in that verse 14, back in Joshua, it says, and Joshua fell on his face to the earth and did worship and said unto him, what saith unto my Lord to his servant? Servant? Joshua was a servant. Joshua ain't no servant. Joshua was a general. Joshua was leading over 1 million people. If you question that number, go to Numbers. There was over 600,000 men from 20 to 50 that fought. That's not counting the older men, and that's not counting the women and children.
Right.
So Joshua was over 1 million people that he commands. When he walks through here, these people click their heels together. General, what's the orders? What's the orders? What are we going to do today, General? Joshua was not a servant. And in this text, that's the low man on the totem pole.
Right.
But Joshua fell on his face.
Yes, he did.
So does Joshua know something that we don't know?
Yes, he does.
Come on.
He knows who this is.
He knows who that
He knows this is his Lord and Savior.
Yes.
And he knows that this is who's getting him through these battles.
That's all right. Yes, he does.
So when we relinquish the command, you know, a lot of times here, that's a big problem that we have, and that's probably where it's going to knock some of us out in this scripture here, is this first point, relinquishing command.
Relinquishing control.
Because we don't want to give up anything.
That's right.
Break.
We want to say, well, God, here I am. This is the way I am. This is the way I'm going to be.
Oh, man.
God says, no, that ain't the way.
No.
That's not the way.
That will
Come on.
You have to follow my word.
Amen.
You know, so when we get through the relinquishing command, you know, and when you look at it, if we had time, we could go into chapter 6 there. God gives Joshua instructions on how to beat Jericho
Yes.
and how to take over Jericho.
Yeah.
So Joshua's asking, well, what are we going to do first, Lord? What are we going to do first? What are we going to go in there? We're going to blow them walls down. We're going to tear this place up. We're going to kill people. We're going to be bloodshed. What are we going to do, Lord? What are we going to do? No, just calm down. This is what we're going to do.
That's right.
On the first day, I want you to go out there and I want you to take all your troops and I want you to march around them walls. And I want you to go lay down. He said, so you want us to walk around the wall and then go lay down? Yep, that's right. So what we're going to do on the second day, Lord? We're going to go in there and we're going to tear the walls down on the second day, all right?
Yeah.
No, on the second day, what I want you to do is I want you to go in there, walk around them
Walk
walls.
around those walls, King.
I want you to go lay down. He said, well, Lord, I'm starting to see a pattern here. He said, so I'm going to guess, Lord, on the third day, we're going to go around and we're going to walk around that wall and we're going to go lay down. And on the fourth day, we're going to go walk around that wall and we're going to lay down. Yep, that's right. That's right.
See it.
He said, and on the fifth day, we're going to do that? Yep. And on the sixth day, we're going to do that? Yep. He said, well, Lord, he said, you know, He said, I'm gonna be the laughing stock of my whole army.
Right.
He said, I'm gonna hear, well, this ain't the way Moses did it. Moses was here, we wouldn't be walking around this wall like this.
Come on, preach.
You know, and the people up on the wall is gonna be hollering down, is this what we're supposed to be scared of? We worried so much about this, and you're just gonna walk around, well, y'all just go ahead and knock yourself out. Just keep on walking.
Amen.
Lord said, okay. He said, that's fine. He said, that's okay. He said, but on that seventh day, he said, I want y'all to walk around that wall 7 times. He said, and on that 7th time, I want you to blow them horns, and I want you to holler real loud.
Right.
And them walls is gonna fall.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
Come on, that's right.
You know, when you relinquish command,
Yes.
and you give it to God,
Right.
That's right.
that's when you see them walls fall down and the
That's
battle's
right.
being won.
That's right.
That's a lot of our problems.
Yes, it
Come on.
is.
Holding so
Yes,
many
it is.
walls up that we can't see those battles won. You know, and as long as you feel like that you're doing just enough for you, it's not enough for Him.
That's right.
So now we relinquish the command. So now we have to have that reverence for the commander.
Right.
You know, and Joshua showed that, you know, when he fell to his face on the earth.
Yes, he
And it
did.
was worshiping.
Yes, he did.
I'm going to tell you something. Jesus Christ, you know, I said earlier that this man of this armor and this sword, that was Jesus. You know, a true theological statement would be he was around before he was around.
True.
And he was alive before he was alive.
Before he was born, that's right.
You know, and if you don't really understand what I'm saying here, if you look back to Hebrews 2, chapter 2 says, for he became in him for whom are all things, and by whom are all things, and bringing many sons unto glory,
Yes.
to make a captain of their salvation.
Right.
Come on.
You know, that's the only other captain that I can see.
Yes.
So when you look back at Revelation, you can read 11 through 16, but in number 16, it says, and he hath on his vest and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords.
Yes.
And that's in 19, 11 through 16. You know, he had those crowns. He rode the white horse. He had the crowns.
Right.
You know, if your ideal of who Jesus is, and if Jesus just came about at the birth, you got a little bitty scope here.
That's
of who
true.
Jesus is.
That's
right.
true.
It's God. It's God. So we have to give him that reverence of command. So
Right.
Amen.
this morning, that was reverence.
Praise God.
Amazing grace.
Yes,
Yes.
sir. Yes,
How
sir.
sweet that is.
Yes.
Yes. Amen.
So the third thing here is removal of your comfort.
Oh.
That's the hardest part, isn't it? Get out of that comfort zone.
Yes.
You know, because we always think this body is ours. And this mouth is ours. And what we do is our thoughts. And that's why we don't go out and we don't talk to people about Jesus.
Amen.
And that's why sometimes we don't feel like we need to come to church.
Uh-oh.
And that's why sometimes we think, oh, well, I slipped up a little bit. It'll be okay. Nobody knows about it. It don't make no difference what any of y'all know about me.
That's right. That's
Because
right.
he already knows.
God already knows
That's right.
it. He already knows it.
You got to step out of that comfort zone.
Yep.
Yes.
So when you look at this last verse here, in Joshua, what's it say it is?
Did so.
And he did.
And the captain of the Lord's host said unto Joshua, loose thy shoes from off thy foot, for the place where thou standest is holy. And Joshua did so.
He did so.
You know, I looked up some pictures. I'd like to go to Jericho. Maybe one day God will take me there if I don't get to go before then. But I looked up some pictures, and you know, this ground around Jericho, this is a battlefield. It's rocky. So I really feel like the whole time that Joshua's standing here and the Lord's telling him this is holy ground, he's thinking, oh Lord, I'm going to do this because I trust in you.
Right.
This is going to hurt, Lord.
Right.
It's going to hurt.
Yeah.
And I need my shoes because I have to fight this battle. But I'm going to give it to you.
But I'm gonna give it to you.
He
Yes.
took his shoe off and he handed it to him.
Yes.
He set his foot down and what did he think? Oh man, this is holy ground.
Holy ground.
This is soft ground. This is that fertile ground. You know, I've talked to you before about the fertile ground. You want to get them roots deep in that fertile ground so that that fruit bears eyes upward.
Yes.
This morning is a good time.
That's right.
Hallelujah. Yes, it
It's a
is.
good time.
Good time.
You got to relinquish command.
Yes.
You got to have that reverence for the
Right.
commandment.
That's right.
And you got to get out of that comfort zone.
Yes.
Right.
And at any time that you don't want to do those three things, you're living on your side and you want God to be on your side.
That's true.
We got to get on God's side.
Help us, Lord. Yes.
There's many people that's sitting in here right now. Step out of your comfort zone.
Help us, Lord.
This is God's battlefield.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
This is God's battlefield right
Yes,
here.
it is.
And I'm going to tell
Hallelujah.
you what, there's enough soldiers in here for
That's
God.
right.
Amen.
But if you need somebody to pray
Yes.
with you, we'd be glad to pray with you.
Hallelujah.
Yes, sir.
Amen.
I tell you, when I walk through the door out here, I feel the Spirit.
Hallelujah.
Yes.
Hallelujah.
When I can
Thank you,
sit
Lord.
there in that chair, I think I've kind of got my name on that chair. I can feel it. You
Yes.
can feel the warmth and you can feel the
Hallelujah.
Spirit.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord.
Please don't be that one that just goes through that parkway line.
Right.
Please.
Give it all to Him.
Yes.
Release it and let Him have it.
Amen.
Yes.
I love y'all, and I thank you, and I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Yes,
I thank you,
amen.
Bishop, for letting me come up this morning.
Great.
I want to be a Joshua,
Yes.
Amen.
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 and I want to be a Joshua for God.
Yes.
Love y'all.
Praise the Lord.